Are we live now?
Yeah.
Awesome. This looks okay. Yes, I think we've got a couple people watching. 5 watching now. For those watching now, give us just like 2 minutes and then we will actually get started with everything. I can see myself on the other half of my screen and that's annoying because there's a delay and also it's mirrored. So I'm going to quickly exit out of that so I don't have to look at myself on that side. I'm just giving it another minute to everyone coming in because it's not quite 6 yet, and then we will get started. It is now 6, right as I finish saying that. I'm bad at time. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Artists for Mental Health charity live stream. I am so very excited to see everybody here. Well, not see, to see on the YouTube that everyone is here. So here's how tonight is going to work for people who are curious. So we have 11 different acts performing tonight, myself included. They each have a bio that is going to be read before they perform. So you're going to hear me talk a lot, but you don't have to see me the entire time or hear me the entire time. There will be other people here, I promise you. Oh, hi, my name's Meg. I'm the host tonight. So the way that the live stream works is obviously it is free to watch and no one is required to donate, but there is a GoFundMe in the description box of the YouTube. And I would deeply appreciate it if people would donate to it. All proceeds from this GoFundMe go towards Mental Health America. So a little bit about why I am actually doing this. I have a project from one of my classes to do a type of charity or helping out like community civic engagement event. And when I was trying to think of what I wanted to do, I decided I wanted to definitely do something to benefit mental health. And that is because that is something that I myself have struggled with for many years at this point. We first started, I have had the diagnosis of anxiety and depression, and I'm totally fine talking about that because it has been a process. And that started back when I was in the 8th grade is when we started talking and looking at that. I'm now a freshman in college, so this has been going on for a long time. I was really lucky to get help at a young age and to be born into a family that was supportive of that and that was willing to get me help that I needed. Not everyone is as lucky as I was. And in addition to that, not everyone has the means to actually get help. And that is why I wanted to benefit Mental Health America, because they are helping screen people for mental illness and raising awareness about mental illness and genuinely educating people. Because when it comes to mental illness, there's a lot of miseducation that goes around, and coming from a rural community like mine or more rural communities even, there's a lot of stigma around it. And Mental Health America helps with that. So if you would like to support this cause, please donate to the GoFundMe that can be found down in the description box. For anyone who is curious, even though we have not actually fully started yet, the GoFundMe has already raised $200, which is incredible and a lot better than I thought we'd be doing at this point. So I'm very pleased about that. A couple bits of housekeeping before we get fully started. There are 2 intermissions throughout the night. The first ones where like you can go and flee to the GoFundMe if you don't want to during the actual performances and donate during those. And I will also be shouting out during those times how much money we have raised. The first one's only going to be about 5 minutes. The second one will be about 10 minutes. So very, very small, short intermissions because we have a fairly full night tonight. Some more housekeeping. There are a couple of mistakes that have been made. So the first is that on the poster, if you saw our lovely, beautiful poster and are here because it advertised drawing and you were really interested in that, my sincerest apologies, we do not have drawing tonight, but we do have some pretty amazing writers who are going to be reading excerpts from their reading. So I hope you accept that instead. Another bit of housekeeping, if you're here because you've seen the programs and we're really excited about some people in the programs, there was some shifting around that happened where instead of Olivia Rockwood and Zoretta Espinoza performing, they were unable to perform tonight. And so instead we have Lisa Richards Crosby who will be doing a reading. And in addition, on the programs, our lovely poet Dalton Sykes was put on it with a misspelled last name. So if anyone wants to look him up, his last name is not spelled S-Y-K-E-S. It is, let me double check this before I get it wrong again, S-I-K-E-S, hopefully. Yes. And that is all. So with that, let us get into our first performance of the night. Our first performer is Tucker Hood. Tucker Hood is a self-published author from Allegheny, Oregon. He has spent much of his life focused in the woods, so nature has had a huge impact on his creative style. He hopes that someday he can write something that will inspire others to create a better world. Tonight, he will be reading from his book, Whispers in the Shadows.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my book. This is called Wind in the Night, and I'll just get right into it. A crisp, cool, brisk breeze whistled through the otherwise undisturbed night. It caressed the tops of the trees and softly blew on the heads of sleeping birds. It tickled the grass and left waves of laughter to flow through the meadows in its wake. It blew gently across the top of the river, who responded with a ripple of satisfaction. The wind continued to fly aimlessly through its midnight kingdom, the secret paths illuminated by the full moon's smile. The wind smiled back at the moon, happy to be able to explore freely in the dark without fear of things that hide in the shadows. At least that's what he thought. As the wind explored valleys and dales, he saw a shadow flicker across a field. A cold chill ran down his length. It caused parts of the straight flowing breeze to curl into small eddies and fold over themselves. On a normal night, the wind would avoid anything that looked as suspicious as the shadow that flitted around below it. But tonight he was unafraid. The moonlight acted like beer, giving the wind a crazy, dangerous, and foolish courage. He slowly floated toward the flickering shadow below, taking his time and looking happily at the beautiful night. The moon's gleam tinted the thin layer of mist on the ground with a shimmering silvery light that spread across the valley and filled it with an ethereal liquid. The treetops and meadows blended together as the wind looked down from his height, the ghostly liquid in the valley painting a beautiful picture. Slowly, he submerged, the light slipping through his airy body and giving him the wonderful sensation of gradually being lowered into a warm bath. The wind twirled lazily and touched the tops of the trees. He giggled like a child as they swayed to and fro at his touch. They're dancing, he thought, happy to let the moonbeams cloud his normally sharp mind. He gusted gently through the forest and let his mind wander far away from the original purpose of floating down into the moonlit valley. As his mind wandered, so did his body. He lost his normal, strongly defined edges and let his body spread through the forest, like a river spreading out into a marsh. He curled around trees and bushes, floated easily above the divots and holes in the ground, and relaxed for the first time in years. He let his mind float freely and was completely submerged in the euphoria-inducing moonlight. A small part of his mind tried to remind him why he had come down, that there was danger afoot, and that he couldn't stay long. But the rest of his clouded mind pushed the warning voice into a dusty corner and simply enjoyed the feeling. The wind lay on the ground for a long while, his mind so foggy from the moonbeams that he couldn't tell if he had been there for minutes or hours. Eventually, the wind felt something odd at the very edge of his consciousness. At first, he only shivered and drew that part of himself inward. Almost immediately, he settled back into his dreamy state that he had been in, gently letting the warm breeze that he had become smoothly brush past the greenery. After a few moments, he felt something again, a cold, dark feeling that started to rouse his numb mind. Grumbling, the wind began to reluctantly pull himself back together, sighing sadly as the wonderfully warm, lazy feeling slowly slipped away. With leisure, the wind pulled himself into a partially defined breeze, then a warm eddy of air, and finally into a series of repeating gusts, shaking the trees and shrubbery lightly. As his body coalesced, the wind felt his mind assembling itself. He wondered why he had stopped in the valley, knowing that it was unlike him to stop anywhere for long without a purpose. He shifted through his memory in search of an answer, but came up empty-handed. Something was out of place in his consciousness, so he investigated. At the very edge of his mind, he found a thought. It was covered in a film of dust, and the wind carefully brushed it off, coaxing the thought back into being. The thought yawned and looked at the wind blearily for a moment, then its eyes grew from peas to melons. The wind was taken aback. What is it? The thought didn't say anything. Instead, it simply flew into the wind's newest ideas. The wind turned from gusts to puffs, then back to gusts as he remembered the reason he had come to the glade. Hurriedly, the wind rose to the treetops and made sure that he fit in with the rest of the environment, becoming a warm breeze that dusted the tops of the trees. He felt a cold, wrathful evil walk under him and shivered. Cautiously, the wind peeked down at the thing. It looked like a man at first, but upon closer scrutiny, the wind saw that its outline was dim and smoky, like a shadow. He saw that the thing didn't walk. It floated over the ground, sticking to the darker parts of the moonlit forest. Warily, the wind followed the creature through the woods, dropping down a little from the tops of the trees. As he did so, the wind felt the air around him become cooler, no matter how much he tried to warm it. Suddenly, the figure stopped and turned around, carefully examining his surroundings. Surely it can't tell that I'm here, thought the wind. The figure slowly looked upwards, and the wind felt the air grow colder. A pair of red dots appeared from behind the edge of the figure's hood, and the wind felt as though they were boring into him. The wind stilled, his equivalent to holding his breath. All of a sudden, the wind felt the air around him turn to ice, freezing him in place. Caught off guard, he struggled to break free, but found that he could barely make a breeze. Stunned by the sheer power in the feat, the wind whispered, "What are you?" The figure below chuckled. "At least you know not to ask who am I?" Its voice was harsh, like smoke from burned and rotten corpses of the dead and dying. "Although I believe that you are old enough to know what I am." The wind stayed silent, stunned by the fact that the creature could hear and understand him. No response. I would have expected more from the north wind. The red dots stared up at the wind, their intense gaze making him feel like his skin was crawling, a very unusual feeling for him. "Well, since I won't be getting a response out of you, I see no harm in answering your question. After all, there are very few people left who can even speak your language. I'm the king's left hand, the shadow and the flame, the smoke from the dead, and the light turned dark." The creature paused then, waiting for a reaction, but the wind didn't recognize any of the names. The red eyes blazed for a moment. "Has it really been that long? Long enough that even the wind has forgotten me?" The figure grew as it bellowed in rage, the edges of its shadow reaching out around it. "Maybe you will remember my true name and my master," it hissed angrily. "I'm Raylan, the first of the Shadow King's warriors. I'm the one who summoned him to this world. I'm the reason that Puny College is now just a mass of rubble at the bottom of a sea. Do you remember me now?" The wind felt another sensation that was strange to him. Fear. He remembered that name. He remembered a time when the Shadow King had ruled the kingdom. He remembered the great Strante, Telron gone to the dark side. The wind had been there the day the college had fallen. He remembered that it had taken one Strante to tear down the great walls of the college and defeat all inside, including the Archmage. The wind remembered all this and was afraid. The figure laughed in satisfaction as the wind pushed against his strength harder than before. "So you do remember me. Good. I have a task for you." Stopped to make sure the wind was listening. After a moment of struggling, the wind gave in and listened to what the creature said. "Spread your fear. Take it with you, because my master has awoken. All should be afraid." With that, the creature let go of the wind and let it fly away. The wind would do as it was told, if not because it wanted to, then because it was in his nature. The wind couldn't help but spread its feelings to the surrounding environment. The figure laughed again, then turned back to his path, following the river toward Coppertown. And that's the end of that little excerpt. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to find more of my work, you can look up my name on Amazon, and the book should come up, Tucker Hood. Yeah, I'll go ahead and pass it on now.
Yay, good job. Our next performer is Gabriel Johnston. Gabriel Johnston is a wildland firefighter for the CFPA who is originally from Palmer, Alaska. He graduated from North Bend High School in 2020. His current goals include finishing his books, writing a new song every month, and being the best husband he can be for his lovely wife. Here he is with his original song, At One Time.
So write my name on wrinkled pages and hide it with your crowns. And I'll write yours on moldy wood and burn the whole tree down. But if by chance the moon ascends and lets the stars align, will we forget, will we pretend at one time you were mine? The great men fell like autumn leaves from reddened coats and blood. And if by land or by the sea a lantern's worn they'd come. But if by chance the moon ascends and lets the stars align, will we forget, will we pretend that one time you were mine? I'm standing like a stone eternal, a castle tall and grand. But in my eyes they come and go like rubble in the sun. But if by chance the moon ascends and lets the stars align, will we forget, will we pretend at one time you were mine? But if by chance the moon ascends and lets the stars align, will we forget, will we pretend at one time you were mine?
Very good, thank you. Our next performer is Darlene Pagan. Darlene Pagan is the author of Blue Ghost, published 2011, and Setting the Fires, published 2015, and has published essays and poems in journals such as Literal Latte, Field Magazine, Calyx, and Hiram Poetry Review. She teaches writing and literature at Pacific University in Forest Grove, Oregon, and is currently working on a middle grade fantasy and, as always, poetry. For more information, see www.darlene-begon.com. Darlene will be performing a selection of her poetry.
Thanks, Megan. I just wanted to thank you for putting this together and for gathering all these different artists here. It's a privilege to be among you, and Gabriel and Tucker, that was wonderful. I would like to read you a few poems today. The first one is speaks to an obsession that all writers, even songwriters, have, which is with language. And this is my obsession with a word called razbliuto. I recite in the dark, Ya Abrni, Arabic for you bury me, Fernweh, German for a longing to be away, Hygelac, Danish for a night with cold beer and friends before a warm fire, or L'appel du vide, French for the urge to jump from high places. The words lulled me until I stopped on razbliuto, Russian for the feelings you have for someone you once loved but now do not. After settling the baby who woke wet with a fever, I returned to the list of words designed to inspire the poet who is still asleep in me as dawn approaches. I write razbliuto down in looping, exaggerated cursive, then watch out the window as a blue jay thieves a branch from another nest. A black hole, the word collapses lovers and friends into smaller and smaller elements. A rock from a hike, a cinnamon scent, a letter written by a hand I once drew stars into, then wept into, even as I forgot the texture of those fingers on my tongue. I look the word up only to find it doesn't exist. Just the root word, that razlubit, to stop loving, recorded in a long list of urban legends, like the German Scheissenbedauern, the disappointment felt when something turns out not nearly as badly as one expected. And what did I expect? The girl who convinced her sister gnomes would visit if she left offerings of money and chocolate on a stump. The girl, now a mother, who lets the baby cry a little longer so she can corner a few bulky words, drag them up by the ankles, and shake their pockets clean. This next poem is called The Uses of Grief. And it's for my neighbor, Sue Lawrence. When we talked about how after she lost her husband, she said, well, no one's knocking on my front doorstep. That's one thing. And it was just one of those wry, strange moments that inspired this poem. The Uses of Grief. No one will ask you to house sit or walk the dog while they frolic on the shores of Hawaii. Most likely they will never even tell you they're going. Friends will not resist when you pull away from a hug, but nearly squeeze you dry if you initiate. And whether it's for sex or a carnival ride, no one will try to set the mood or coax you into going. Neighbors will not expect you at the annual barbecue, but if you come, they'll be delighted you didn't trouble yourself to cook something. They'll refill your drinks unasked, even as they count how many you suck down. No one will ask to borrow a cup of sugar or a rake, much less expect you at book club, birthday parties, baby showers. People you hardly know will pray for you, and though you have no idea what you believe, when you growl about asking God to do something useful like pulling weeds or laundry, you will wake to find someone has pulled the weeds. Maybe it's only the fear that someone like your mother will show up to do your laundry, but you finally stuff a pile of clothes into the washer. Then one day, a sorrow newer than yours sends you to someone else's doorstep with your best lasagna and a bottle of whiskey. And you walk right in because you know she will not protest, not when you rummage the cabinets or pour drinks, not when you reheat the food or set it down in front of her on a cracked orange plate. This next poem is called Starving the Panic, and it was just inspired by not being able to sleep because you can't shut your brain off, and I have a feeling most of you understand that. Starving the Panic. Whatever woke you, the baby choking, a lover's elbow to your chin, mice scratching Morse code between the walls behind the bed, the rumor you never admitted to starting, the doctor's "I'm sorry" before she leaves the room. Let it take one last snap like a towel wound and whipped at your thigh in a high school locker room. And then let it settle like a sheet. Set your hands to smoothing each billow and pocket. Pull the corners taut. Lie back in the dark as if you're waiting for someone to join you for a midnight picnic. Someone who still hasn't shown at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and you hardly care anymore because no matter what morning carries in its silver hands, the moon is a purple-tongued pup, wagging the black night, just begging you to throw something. And this last poem is based on something I saw driving to work. It's called The Virgin on 10th and TV Highway. The boy flies through the intersection on a chrome racing bike, the chain link mustache handlebars set so far forward they appear to drag him down the sidewalk. The frame sparkles in the same faint blue as the Virgin, rising in sharp relief on the mammoth scapular strung over his head and flapping against his chest and back. Stopped at the red light, I watch him dart past me into a roiling carpet of fog until the bike looks like it's riding in thin air, and the scapular is really a young girl in a blue hood, her face pressed to his back, arms around his chest, eyes on the road to make sure the way is clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will go into our first intermission. So this one is only about 5 minutes long. So I will tell you right now where we sit at for the GoFundMe. We are currently still at $200. And I'm going to disappear for about 4 minutes. And then when I come back, we will see if we have raised any more money. All right. Thank you all. See you in a few minutes. Hello, welcome back after that little tiny break. So far, for anyone who is curious, we are currently at $290 in our GoFundMe. So we raised $90 in those 4 minutes, which I think is pretty cool. Keep donating throughout the night, and we'll see where we are at by the second intermission. We have about another minute before that will actually happen. So if anyone wants to like really frantically go donate, that would be pretty nice. And I can call that out before we get started with our next performer. And it is now 6:30. So why do I keep saying things that like it ends as soon as I say them? That is perfectly fine. Okay. So now we are moving on to our next performer, which is Zipporah Rule. Zipporah Rule is 9 years old and has been playing fiddle for 3 years now. Her favorite style is Scottish fiddle, and she's going to play a set of 3 Scottish songs: Archibald MacDonald, The Hyaws of Cromdale, and Jenny Dang the Weaver.
Hi, everyone.
Excellent job, Zipporah. Thank you so much. Following Zipporah, we have Dalton Sykes. Dalton Sykes, originally from Southern California, is an Oregon-based writer and poet. Currently, he is an English and creative writing major at Pacific University, pursuing a minor in editing and publishing. Today, he will be reading a selection of his poetry.
Hello. So I just figured it was necessary before I start to give a content warning. I will be doing a spoken word performance, and I'll be covering some heavier topics such as grief and loss. So if that is something that you struggle with or is going to be hard for you to hear, I advise that you take a break during my performance or mute me, do whatever is necessary to prioritize your health. So, first up, I will be reading a poem I wrote called Lovesick. This poem is just one episode in the tragic show that is my love life, so I hope you enjoy. Some would call me tragic, but you always act as if I'm magic. It seems odd that out of all the people you could pick, you came to me rather quick. Maybe it's my mind's trick. I must hopelessly be lovesick. I sit in the back of class. I do more than pass. I have an extraordinary amount of sass, yet alas the mass, you found me. You needed no apology. The seat next to me was free. I have always been awfully shy. It came from those who would hate and pry, come into my life only to fabricate a lie, riding their malicious high, not caring for the tears in my eye, enjoying every cry, but you came and you took a chance. All it took was one glance and a sort of verbal dance, and I was under your trance. You are sweeter than the finest cake. You make those around you awake. You never take, I haven't ever seen you make a genuine mistake, except when you made my heart ache. You had me by the throat. Every time that I wrote, you would go and dote on someone you would rather give your vote. I was like a present. My heart, a gift sealed nice in an intricate box, bound by a bow perfectly crafted. My ribbon was used to seal, not to mend. My heart, it was meant to defend. However, with every kind word, my ribbon was loosened. And then you started your bruising, talking about all those that you would rather be choosing. You left my contents oozing, spilling out onto the floor. You were just another person who closed my doors. Then you circled back, and we got back on track. Now I don't know how to act. I feel as if I always say the wrong words. I hope that your efforts don't deter. Every time I try to speak around you, I slur. I am sure of one thing. I want you, but I'm not sure if you want it too. Please just let me know if you do, because I honestly have no clue. It could all be my delusion from this lovesick flu. So, moving on, I will read my next poem called Lord, Take My Hand. This poem may sound like something a stereotypical high school emo kid would write. However, I hope that you are able to see it as something more than that. I am crying, I'm dying, I'm shattered, and I'm tattered. I'm broken, my name is unspoken, everyone taken from me piece by piece. Fall to my knees, I crumble and bleed. I'm broken, save me. I go to God and I say, please take my pain away and tell me someday that I'll be fine. Please make it so the stars align. Darkness can no longer be my wine. I am seeking the help of the divine. It is time for my cleansing to begin. I must confess every sin. I have an evil within. I feel the need to get under others' skin. I prick others with my toxic pins, watching as they wear thin. I'm a bad person. Every time I try to help, I worsen all that surrounds me. Lord, please take my hand. And moving on to my last poem, which I'm really starting to think now I should have incorporated like some happy haikus or something. like in between, but unfortunately I did not. So this third and final poem I will read, I wrote, is called Runaway. And this poem is about one of my biggest regrets in my life. And I hope that by speaking my story, others will learn the value of compassion and the need for intervention. Run, 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 run. It happened again. I try to restrain, but I can't stop the endless flow of rain. Your friendship is something I should have worked harder to maintain. I just couldn't handle the pain. We were friends for a long time. We'd try to hang out in our prime. No paradigms, just lunchtime. Run, run, run away, tears left on display, no words I could possibly say. You were on a downhill slope, all sorts of obstacles coming your way. I didn't realize that you needed me to stay. I should have stopped you as you rode on towards decay. Lost in my thoughts, trying to untangle all the knots. I didn't realize the shots, all the blood-soaked dots, your fragile attempts to blot the ever-growing spots. I'd run, run, run away when all you wanted me to do was stay. I'm sorry, another day. Just meaningless words that I would say. We were so close. I think that's why I miss you the most. The starry skies never seemed so engrossed by a friendship where we knew our posts, and you were not yet morose. The silver noose wrapped around us at first loose, with the option to call a truce, stop the abuse, and we honestly had no excuse. I never thought it would be put to use. Run, run, run away. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what amount I could pay to convey that you would be fine someday. Gone forever after your parents' horrible endeavor. I should have said it better. I should have wrote you a letter. You didn't respond in person. Words of comfort would only worsen the overall burden time and time again till our friendship had been broken. Run, run, run away. I didn't care which way. I'm sorry to betray the situation. I couldn't just downplay. I should have given you more leeway. I didn't mean to mislay that it would stop hurting someday. Churning waters and quieted forest, radiant sunsets and icy regrets. I wish that I could hit reset, but I know that I can't reach it. Run, run, run away, little boy. No need to annoy. Just let him play with his toy. Time stopped for a long while. I never meant to put you on trial. I promise I'll stay. There's no need to run away. Come on, I'll pray. Blink my eyes, and it will all go away. So please don't run, run, run away. So that was my third and final poem. And that poem is still hard for me to read, even though it's been years since I've written it. I want you to take this as a call to action. Don't run away from tough situations, because you can make a world of difference in somebody's life. You will regret not intervening if you don't at least try to help someone who is struggling with their mental health. If someone you know needs help, reach out to them in person, provide anonymous hotlines for them to get access to resources, and please don't run away. Specifically for the LGBT community who faces disproportionate rates of depression and various mental health issues, in addition to factors such as homelessness and substance abuse, I'd recommend having them call the Trevor Project so that they can get anonymous help from fellow members of the LGBT community to help them with whatever they may be struggling with. I want to thank you so much for this opportunity to present, and I will be passing off my turn to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Dalton. Those were very beautiful poems and a wonderful message after them. Our next performer is Lisa Richards Crosby. Lisa Richards Crosby was born in San Bernardino, California in 1973. When Lisa was 4, her family moved to Oregon, where she grew up in the Salem area. Lisa has always loved stories, reading, and writing Christian fiction. Lisa, her husband Andy, and her 2 sons reside in North Bend on the southern Oregon coast. In 2002, she dreamed of a story that kept coming together in her mind. She felt the need to share that story, and so during the next several years, Zipporah Grace took form and was published by Westbow Public Press in 2014. It is Lisa's goal to finish her other books in this series when she has the extra time. Right now, she is a youth pastor in the Nazarene Church and uses her book as a ministry to girls, showing that God cares and has a plan and a purpose for them to live with morals and respect for themselves. She will be reading the first parts beginning of her book, Zipporah Grace.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for doing this, Megan. This is a look at my book here, so you can find it on Amazon. How's it going, Greg? Thad Wagner clapped Pastor Jenkins on the shoulder as he walked by and took a seat in front of the desk. He'd known Greg Jenkins for 17 years. Thad left California and moved to Oregon 2 years ago, where he attended a church in Salem until 4 months ago. He then started to attend Calvary Valley, filling a position in youth services on the worship team. The youth group had about 150 kids. Great, I'm glad you came. I need some help with the camp schedule. I've filled all the counselor positions. We're going to have a fantastic staff this year. Pastor Jenkins drummed on his wooden desk. Wonderful. Do you have that list of songs for me? Thad held out his hand for the white papers Pastor Jenkins pulled out of his drawer. By the way, you are smiling a little too much this morning. What do you have up your sleeve this time? Thad would never forget the blind date Pastor Jenkins had set him up on last month. Do I look guilty of something? Pastor Jenkins asked, pointing his thumb at his chest. Yes, and you've been caught, so just spit it out. Thad folded his long arms and sat back, eyeing the grinning, mischievous man of God. Pastor Jenkins always combed his dark brown hair in a fashionable men's style. His build reminded Thad of a football player sporting heavy gear. While Thad was growing up, Greg Jenkins took the time to teach him the ways of the Lord. This mentor eventually became his best friends. Okay, you caught me. Pastor Jenkins leaned back in his overstuffed chair. Don't freak out, but I have someone I want you to meet. She'll be a counselor this week. I think you might really hit it off with her. Thad stopped, sat quietly for a minute, then sighed and started again. You are always trying to set me up. What's so special about this one, huh? Thad scratched the scruff on his chin, staring at the pastor with challenge in his eyes. I'm not going to say another word or even tell you which one she is. I think this one you can figure out for yourself. Pastor Jenkins rendered a cheesy grin. Great. Thanks for the warning, Cupid. Guess we'd better get to work. Thad took out his paper and pencil and started writing ideas for the camp schedule. Zipporah Grace picked up Danielle and drove 45 minutes to the mile-long gravel drive that took them up through the gate and to the camp. They rolled their windows down, enjoying the thick pine scent that always invaded camp. Zipporah Grace felt like a snake slithering up through the tall trees and grasses. Excitement flooded Zipporah Grace in anticipation as she pulled into the parking lot. Pastor Jenkins and his wife Marcia greeted the girls with hugs. They helped Zipporah Grace and Danielle cart their belongings over to the girls' cabins. Marcia checked her clipboard. Zipporah Grace, you're in cabin 5, and Danielle, you're in number 6. Inside the cabin, Zipporah Grace began laying out her sleeping bag. The cabin door opened, and in walked a teenage girl with waist-long hair. Stylish glasses framed her eyes in deep purple rectangles studded with 3 fox diamonds on each side. She was holding a pillow in her teeth and a suitcase in each hand, with a sleeping bag slung over her slim shoulder. Are you my junior counselor? Zipporah Grace raised a hand to catch the falling pillow. Yes, I'm Melissa. You must be Zipporah Grace. Melissa dropped her bags and gave Zipporah Grace a bear hug. I can tell we're going to be the best of friends, and to think I was nervous about who I was going to counsel with. Where should I bunk? Zipporah Grace ran her hands through her hair, looking around. I thought you should bunk next to me so we can talk if we need to. She laid out Melissa's sleeping bag on the bunk. By the way, is Zipporah Grace your real name? Melissa asked. Not that I don't like it or anything. I mean, it's great. It's just so unusual. It suits you. Melissa stared at Zipporah Grace. Yes, it is my real name, Zipporah Grace Dipple. It's from the Bible. Zipporah was Moses' wife. You can call me Zippy if you want to. That's my nickname. Okay, Zippy, what's the plan? I'm starving. Melissa launched herself backwards onto her bunk, pushing out her legs. Zipporah Grace looked around the cabin. I thought we would get settled. In half an hour, we're supposed to go to the lodge for dinner. Oh, good. Melissa grabbed her stomach. I don't think I could wait much longer than that. Zipporah Grace smiled, continuing to unpack. Melissa would be easy to get along with. They were going to have a blast this week. Thad sat quietly at the back table, eyeing each person in the dinner line. An extra beat tapped inside his chest as he determined to figure out Pastor Jenkins' secret someone. Thad sighed and chastised himself for staring, then continued forking spaghetti into his mouth. A small ruckus broke out in the dinner line. Thad looked up to see a young lady pretending to beat another over the head. I did not, Melissa. You were the one who said it. All right, I'll admit it was me. Melissa laughed, then turned back to fill her tray. The other young lady just laughed and went on her way. Thad was mesmerized. He couldn't take his eyes off of her. He stared at her short brown hair, framed so perfectly around a pretty face, a dimple in each cheek. Her smile etched deeply into his mind. She had gorgeous green eyes, which made him think briefly of the Caribbean Sea. Thad heard nothing else around him until someone slapped the end of his table, bringing him out of his dream world. Feeling a bit distracted, Thad forced himself to continue eating. Welcome to Camp Chaos. Let's get to know each other a little. First off, I'm Greg Jenkins. This is my lovely wife, Marcia. Marcia is our camp nurse. These are our daughters, Rachel and Laura. They will be helping out wherever needed. Pastor Jenkins had the floor. All eyes were on him. Over to my right are Bob and Jerry Grady and Dave and Joy Lee. They are in charge of the kitchen and everything else that goes on in Hullabaloo Lodge. If you have a handyman problem, see Bob or Dave. Zipporah Grace looked over to see two jovial guys waving at everyone. Now I want to introduce you to Gary and Gina Foster. They are in charge of arts and crafts. Zipporah Grace noticed the couple sitting in wheelchairs at the front of the lodge. Hi, everyone, Gary said, turning his body toward the group. Gina and I are delighted to be here to share God's love with all the kiddies. If we can help you with anything, let us know. The crowd clapped. Okay, who's next? Pastor Jenkins scanned the room. That would be our wonderfully talented guitar-playing Thad Wagner. Pastor Jenkins pointed to a man in the back of the room. Thad stood up, smiled, and waved. Zipporah Grace's heart skipped a beat, and her face immediately turned red. She couldn't stop looking at him. Trying to cover her blushing reaction to a complete stranger, she stood up, walked to the back table, and aimlessly searched through the tea selection. A randomly chosen tea bag finally steeped in the hot water in her styrofoam cup while she made her way back to her seat. She sat down and took a sip. Her favorite, cherry. Thad retired to his small duplex cabin. Pastor Greg Jenkins and Marcia occupied the other side. Thad sat on his bed, thinking of only one thing, Zipporah Grace Dipple. He reached for his guitar and began to pluck out a tune. Soft, like Thad imagined her to be, he added words to his tune. Zipporah Grace with the pretty face. Your eyes look like the sea when you're looking at me. Zipporah Grace with the pretty face. Your hair so brown would wipe away any frown. Zipporah Grace with the pretty face. So soft like a fairy and you smell like a chair. Abruptly, a knock came at his door. Thad wasn't sure how loud he had sung. Still caught up in the moment, he opened the thin door to a broadly grinning Pastor Jenkins. Gregory, my man, nice to see you out and about. Thad put on his best manufactured smile. He extended his right hand to his friend for a hearty handshake. So, I hear you found the one I was talking about. Pastor leaned against the doorframe and lifted his eyebrows. She must have made quite the impression on you, seeing how you've already written a song about her. It's beautiful. Thad's whole body grew warmer, but still, all he could think about was her scent. He put his head closer to Pastor's and whispered, "Yes, she smelled like cherries." "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone," Pastor Greg whispered back, laughed, and tugged Thad out the door. "You up for a walk around camp before bed?" Thad looked past him. "I think I could use some cool night air right about now." He reached in the doorway and grabbed his flashlight and a sweatshirt off the chair next to the door. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Our next performer is Jodelle Marks. Jodelle Marks is a spoken word poet and writer of prose. Much of her writing studies gender, power, and privilege, including her current writing project, Hearing Voices, Healing and Empowering Voices Through Writing. Her social media handle for Twitter and Instagram is @Jodelle Marks. Here are two of her poems, Alice Fell Down a Rabbit Hole and High Flying Partner.
Thank you for the introduction, Megan, and thank you to everyone who's here tonight. I'm so excited to be a part of this. I'm actually just based on the kind of the atmosphere of the event, I'm doing a little bit of a switch up with the poems that I'll be performing, but I'm still excited. This first one is called Reoccurring Dream. Last night, I dreamt my hand was a stop sign, and my voice was hard like asphalt. No, like yelling through sleep, get back, go home. My mom taught me to speak this way when unwelcome dogs approach. They startle and trot away, dogs, that is. This next, actually this will be an essay, but it's a really short essay that kind of, I think, blurs the lines between essay and poem. It's called How to Change a Light Bulb. And it's from a collection of short essays that talks about antisocial disorder or sociopathy as written from the perspective of different women who are related to someone who is a sociopath. So this one is called How to Change a Light Bulb, and it's written by Exhausted Woman. I'll go ahead and get started. You must be creative. Stick a dry wooden spoon, never conductive metal, into the light fixture. Extend your reach by inching your fingers to the end of the handle. You will have less control here, but it is okay. Have patience. With what little dexterity remains, press the end of the tube socket until you are no longer standing in the dark. The light will be bright. It will hurt. Slowly, it will grow, and you will become used to it. Expect it. Live in it. Then it will go out, and you will have to start over. Rewiring the brain after trauma takes patience and consistency. It will be hard. It will be tedious. It will be confusing. There is no end product. You will work day in and day out to convince the brain that it is not in danger. Sometimes switching the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system will feel like switching a light on. Oh, that wasn't so hard. And other times you will have to be creative. This third piece that I'm performing is one of my favorites that I've written recently, and it's called Alice Fell Down a Rabbit Hole. And I went along for the ride. We drank potions to make our hips wider, our figures smaller. We walked through doll-sized doors and chased after an anxious rabbit. There was carrot cake with cream cheese frosting and tea with the Mad Hatter. We shrank in our seats when the Queen's army approached and eavesdropped when we weren't allowed at the table. We were not confused. No, that is for Snow White and Cinderella, who woke from a prince's kiss, who took candied apples from a stranger, lost track of time, and lost a slipper. We skipped school and deciphered riddles with the Cheshire Cat, a wide-cut slice of grinning teeth, stripes coiling up and down his vanishing body. He never sat still, always here or there, hovering over our shoulders or sprawled on a tree branch. We learned it doesn't matter where you go if you have nowhere to get to. So we tossed our watches and left the pathways with their hypocritical signs. The bracken did not stop us. Thorns like fish hooks reeled for us, and we left breadcrumb trails of mascara and blush, ate apricots and drank honey, sticky across our faces, laughter mending our bodies from fingertips to acrid armpits. We lost our shoes in the mud, used petticoats as towels. We built a table of our own, leaves and dry grass, glue of imagination, and chairs of why not? Thighs exposed and twigs in our hair, blackberry juice glossing our lips. We wrote invitations in firefly dots and dashes. Won't you join us in Wonderland? Thank you.
Thank you, excellent job. Our next performer is Madeline Johnstone. Madeline Johnstone is currently a freshman student at Pacific University majoring in music therapy. A newcomer to Oregon, she is originally from Wenatchee, Washington. Her main instruments include guitar, piano, and ukulele, and she also writes her own music. She will be performing one of her original songs tonight, Paper Planes.
Takes a sheet and one little crease, and it stays like that forever, 'cause paper has history. That's what we're making here with every fold we make. It takes on a brand new shape. So I'll make the jet that flies straight. You make the one that does figure eights for days on end, never ending. So let's take our paper planes and fly far away from here. So take me sphere up where it's crystal clear. There we were meant to fly, 'cause paper don't go too far, but baby we can reach the stars if we just learn to fly away. Fly today in our paper planes, and I know that paper is frail and it tends to tear, and the winds will whip us around, but we ain't coming down. So let's see how far we'll that we were meant to fly. 'Cause paper don't go too far, but baby, we can reach the stars if we just learn to fly away. Fly today in our paper planes. Don't need a rocket ship or even the real thing. Just give me a sheet of paper, that's all you need to bring. So take my hand, join me on this journey to the galaxy to see the stars that no one else can see. 'Cause 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we're headed towards the sun, leaving all our worries down below. And we're headed to infinity and beyond. So leave behind all your doubts and insecurities, 'cause we're gonna see all that we can be. They doubted us, but what they don't know is that we were meant to fly. So take me to the atmosphere, up where it's crystal clear, that we were meant to fly. 'Cause paper don't go too far, but baby, we can reach the stars if we just learn to fly. Fly away, fly today in our paper planes, our paper planes. Ooh, our paper planes.
Beautiful job, Maddie. Thank you very much. And with that, we will enter into our second intermission. This one will be 10 minutes long, so take these 10 minutes to go to the restroom, get some water, and also donate to the GoFundMe, which can be found down in the description box. We are currently sitting at $410, which is almost halfway to the goal I set of 1,000. So let's see if we can get a little bit closer. All right, thank you, and I'll see you again in 10 minutes when I will announce what we are currently at. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you all had an excellent 10-minute break. I know I did. I ate an almond, so I'm really living the high life right now. Anyways, you were all certainly busy during the break, as we are now sitting at $530, which I am so very excited about. And we're moving into the last section of performances for the night. There will be 3 of them. And the first for the night is going to be, for this last section of the night, is going to be Jillian Ward. Jillian Ward has been involved in the writing industry through fiction and nonfiction novels, ghostwriting projects, and newsprint journalism since she was 16 years old. Since starting her career, many of her stories have been picked up by AP News and made large community impacts. A story she uncovered in May 2018 made waves worldwide, detailing the allegations against the North Bend School District. In 2019, her coverage of Nicholas McGuffin's manslaughter conviction being overturned led to her assistance in providing source material for ABC's 2020. Ward graduated summa cum laude from the University of Colorado, Denver with a bachelor's degree in English creative writing. A month before graduating, she was hired as a lead reporter with the Red Mountain Tribune in Colorado. While there, she uncovered an active Cuban cartel drug bust and followed unmarked DEA vans to 2 more sites where illegal marijuana grows were being dismantled. It was called Operation Mountain Grass. In 2016, she was hired at the World newspaper in Coos Bay, Oregon. She first got the community's attention when a homeless man led her through transient camps in the county. It was titled No Place to Call Home. In addition, one of her unpublished fiction novels won 2 international first place awards. She was also mentored by best-selling authors David Morrell and Bonnie Hearn Hill. The piece she is reading today details the experiences of a helicopter pilot during the Vietnam War. It explores the honest account of a soldier struggling with PTSD who was traumatized after flying a top-secret battle that has since been declassified. This battle holds the record of being the deadliest air battle in U.S. history. It is titled When Eagles Cry.
Thank you, Megan. This book is a co-project with the man the story is about. I am writing it off of interviews, and he's excited that I'm able to do a reading of the project here tonight. It is an ongoing project, and it's done in the first person from his perspective about that battle, and also to really convey the complexities of PTSD. So, you sure you want to do this, Johnny? The woman behind the desk asked, a wad of pink gum rolling across the scum on her tongue. Dropping this class will mean you're not a full-time student. It may set you up for the draft. I grinned at her tone, uncomfortable, but amused by how unimpressed she sounded. She thought that I was some regular dropout Joe. It's John, and yes. I leaned with my elbows on the counter, pulling at a clump of loose strings hanging off my jacket sleeve. Besides, it's just American history. What I didn't say was that I was working full-time while taking 4 night classes. Something had to go, and this was the one class that had to be it. I yanked the loose strings off my sleeve with a pop. So can you drop that class for me, I asked. As long as you realize that yesterday was the last day to drop without hurting your GPA, Johnny. Her gum lolled around her mouth, and I wondered if it would fall into her typewriter. This will be on your transcripts as failed. Just do it. I grinned at her again, more out of spite than with being uncomfortable this time. She chewed her gum, rolled her eyes, and focused on her typewriter. I refrained from thanking her and turned away, playing with a gob of green thread. The office was cramped and not busy enough for what I was paying in tuition here at San Antonio Community College. White paint was turning a sick yellow and cracking near the ceiling where water stains stretched across the tiles. I took a deep breath of the musty office and glanced at the plastic seats on my left. On one sat a crinkled newspaper. Its headline, 12 soldiers dead. The photo of a burning helicopter sat beneath it with its nose crunched into a black ground. Vietnam. The image branded into my eyes. Other students had been protesting the war outside campus the other day, but I didn't join in. I tore my concentration from the newspaper, swallowing hard. but that crashed helicopter stayed in my head. The woman's fingers whirred for a moment over the buttons on the typewriter. The carriage slid to the far left and clicked. "Congratulations, Johnny," she said around her gum. I looked sidelong at her through my hair. "You're not in American history anymore." The look in her eyes judged me as an eternal nobody. I tossed her my best, toothiest smile, dropped the knot of green thread on the counter, and turned for the door. The newspaper on the chair called for me, but I could still see the ruined helicopter burning in black and white on its front page. There wasn't a need to look back. It was only a week before the consequences caught up to me. I had forgotten about it, having had a good day before pulling into the driveway after work. By the time I stepped out of my Jeep, breathing in the white roses planted around the front porch, I was whistling. The stairs creaked under my work boots. The hammer in my belt clanked against other tools. Dinner was already cooking, roast by the smell of it. The kitchen window must be open. I whistled another short little tune that I picked up from the radio and opened the door. "John." Mom stood in front of me, worrying the edge of her greasy flowered apron with one hand, the other hanging onto a letter and trembling. Sunlight poured into the house behind me through the open door and across her terrified face. Dark hair hung in curled strands around her, against her cheeks. Flushed with either the heat from the kitchen or the fear I could feel pulsing out of her. That fear latched onto me. She never met me at the door unless I was in trouble. "What's wrong?" I listened to the silence, the momentary last breath before the wild winds of the storm came tearing through my life. Her eyes met mine. Then I knew. "It must be because you dropped that class," she managed. I watched her swallow and I copied her. She held the letter out to me, pursing her lips against whatever words she wanted to say. I hesitated, not willing to take the envelope. The idea made me angry. But then I was angry at myself because I had dropped the class in the first place. I took the letter since there wasn't anything else to do. I stared at it and darkness filled me, an illness that made me want to get away. In a flash of weakness, I made plans to head for Canada and escape the draft notice that weighed like a ton in my hands. But that wasn't what Dad taught me. This family didn't run from anything. "Aren't you going to open it?" Mom twisted the edge of her apron with both hands. "Later." I took one more look at the envelope, my name stamped clear as day on the front. The weight of the world fell on my shoulders, bringing my knees to almost buckle. I gave Mom my best smile and set the letter on the dark oak table by the door. "Is that a roast cooking?" I made my tone chipper for her. She started to say something. I didn't hear her. My draft notice had come. Though I walked away from it, I could feel it calling for me from its place on the table. "Vietnam," it chanted like the protesters outside of campus, angry, demanding, and out of control. "Vietnam." The draft notice called my name from across town when I went to school or work and kept me awake while I lay in bed. Its presence on the table by the front door weighed on my shoulders like that crashed helicopter in the newspaper. I ignored it for 2 weeks. "Are you going to open it?" Mom asked one morning, her sweet voice a whisper. She was soft-spoken anyway, but the stress I saw in the bags around her eyes made her even quieter. "John." Mom said my name in a way that told me I was being irresponsible or unreasonable or both. It was sad and still too quiet. "You need to open it." "Okay." I stared at my burned toast, no longer hungry. My stomach was twisting again anyway. There was no way I could swallow what was left of my breakfast, even if I tried. I listened to my mother's footsteps. I listened as my mother's footsteps took her to another part of the house, probably the living room where she did her sewing. When the sound of her swishing dress was gone, I glanced over my shoulder to make sure I was alone. All that kept me company now was the flowered white and blue wallpaper and family photographs. The toast dropped from my numb fingers and I braced my hands on the table. Steeling my nerves, I stood, turned, and walked up to the letter. It was heavier than I remembered. I studied my name on the front, not handwritten and personal, but stamped by a typewriter. It made me feel cold. It made me feel less like a person and more like a weapon being called off the manufacturer line. I steeled myself and flipped the envelope over. The world spun around me and all that existed was the thick, stapled paper inside. The anxiety in my chest exploded, and I barely managed to keep from dumping the letter on the table and speeding off somewhere else, anywhere else. Your draft number has been pulled, it read. I searched for my report date. It was in 2 weeks. Which one are you looking at now? I had pamphlets and folders spread out across my girlfriend's dining room table. My head was in my hands as I stared at my options. Do I join the Army? Why should I choose that over the Air Force or the Navy? Looking at the Army again, I answered, though it came out monotone. The sound of fresh coffee being poured into a mug woke me up. Jenna grinned at me through the steam as she walked across the kitchen. I'd been spending most of my time with her since receiving my draft notice. After I'd gone to Fort Sam and passed my induction physical, I found myself here. After picking up information on which branch of the military I would let them shove me into, I found myself here again. All the while, she knew once I returned to Colorado, where I had to be for my induction ceremony, right before leaving for boot camp, we'd probably never see each other again. But she still smiled when she opened her front door, still kissed me when she brought me coffee, which she did again as she set the mug down, just shy of the paper explosion in her kitchen. I watched her hair spill across her face as she sat and looked over the papers in front of me. She pointed at the section I had been rereading for the past half hour. Helicopter school. She looked both interested and skeptical. They're still new. I was already nodding. But I'd be in the air, I said, as if that countered every argument she could come up with. Besides, if I choose what I want to go into now, they won't be able to just throw me wherever. She was quiet. I need to keep as much control as I can, I said. I need to. She nodded. Instead of saying anything else, she dug into her jeans pocket and pulled out a stamp-sized piece of paper. Still not saying anything, she handed it to me. It was a picture of her. It looked like her senior photo from high school. I set it on my stack of papers and patted it. She kissed my cheek before walking back to the kitchen, and I just stared at the picture because it was coming with me to Vietnam. I applied to the Warrant Officer Flight School, took the tests, passed the interview, and signed up for the 6-year commitment. I figured, why not turn this into a chance to learn how to fly a helicopter? Might as well. I quit my job, was wished good luck by my bosses, and dropped my other classes. Then there was Jenna. It hadn't seemed serious, but it still hurt to end it. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew we would never see each other again, so I wished her the best and told her goodnight for the last time. I still remember looking back once, just once, as I left her on that golden lit porch. She was standing there, leaning against the railing with a hand on her throat and tears in her eyes. Her smile quivered like she forced it out to make me believe it was okay. It almost worked, but what hurt the most was leaving my family. Just as I feared, no one told me goodbye or good luck. It was just another morning. I already knew what my brothers and sisters were up to. One had gone to work, another was still in bed, and I could see the 2 youngest planted in front of the TV. Dad sat at the table eating eggs, eyes glued on the newspaper, and I refused to look at that headline. It had something to do with Vietnam, and I couldn't stand seeing a new toll of dead soldiers. Someday one of them could be me. However, my mother looked up at me from her place at the stove, small and petite, her hair in a dark bun. Her smile trembled and her eyes were sad. I held her gaze as I stood at the front door and forced out a grin of my own. Then I stepped out of the house with a rucksack over my shoulder. When the door shut behind me, it was the first time San Antonio felt cold. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good job. And our next performer is actually me. So, hi, I'm Megan Farber. I'm a writer from North Bend, Oregon. My work is almost always inspired either by the stories of my family or the coastal environment that I've grown up in. While writing is my primary focus, I also enjoy acting and playing the violin, and I've recently picked up the ukulele. I am currently a freshman student at Pacific University, working towards a double major in literature and creative writing with a minor in editing and publishing. Choosing acting tonight, I will be reading a cutting of Ned Vizzini's It's Kind of a Funny Story. As soon as I saw the Manhattan map, I wanted to draw it. I should be able to draw the place where I live. So I asked Mom for tracing paper, and she got it for me, and I brought it into my fort, and I pointed the light right down on the first map in the Hagstrom Atlas. I held the tracing paper down and tried to trace the lower line of Manhattan. I couldn't do it. I mean, it was ridiculous. My line didn't have anything to do with the real one. I didn't understand. I was holding the paper steady. I looked at my small hand. Stay still, I told it. I crumpled up the paper and tried again. The line wasn't right again. It didn't have the swoop. I crumpled up the paper and tried again. This line was even worse than before. Manhattan looked square. It looked like everything but what it was supposed to look like. Manhattan. I couldn't do it. I didn't realize that when you trace stuff, you're supposed to have a tracing table, lighted from below, and clamps to hold the paper straight, not a trembling 4-year-old hand. So I just thought I was a failure. They always said on TV you could do anything you wanted, but here I was trying to do something and it wasn't working. I would never be able to do it. I crumpled up the last piece of tracing paper and started sobbing, my head in my hands and my fort. Mom heard me. Craig, she sighed, looked at me. I have an idea. Instead of spending your time trying to trace maps of Manhattan, why don't you make your own maps of imaginary places? And that was the closest I've ever come to an epiphany. He got me some thick paper, white construction paper. Later on, I grew to prefer straight computer paper. I went back under my fort and turned the light on and started on my first map. And I did that for the next 5 years. Whenever I was in class, I didn't doodle, I drew maps, hundreds of them. When I finished, I crumpled them. It was the making them that was important. I did cities on the ocean, cities with 2 rivers meeting in the middle, cities with 1 big river that bent, cities with bridges, crazy interchanges, circles, and boulevards. I made cities. That made me happy. That was my anchor. And until I turned 9 and turned to video games, that was what I wanted to be when I grew up, a map maker. But I'm already gone. I've got the river started at the top of the page, looping down to meet with a second river. No, wait, you have to put in the roads first, because the bridges go over the water, remember? Highways first, then rivers, then streets. It's all coming back to me. How long has it been since I did this? Since I was 9? How could I forget? I slash a highway across the center of the page and make it meet with another in a beautiful spaghetti interchange. One ramp goes off the junction through a park and ends in a circle, a nice hubbub of residential activity. The blocks start out from there. The map is forming my own city. Oh, somebody got Craig's mind unblocked, Joni announces from the other end of the room. I glance back. Ebony, who's been sitting over there, goes through the arduous process of getting up with her cane and walks toward me. I want to see. Huh, thanks, Ebony, I say, turning back to the map. Is that somebody's brain? Ebony asks. I look up at her, rolling her mouth and smiling down. I look at the map. It's not a brain, clearly, it's a map. Can't she see the rivers and highways and interchanges? But I see how it could look like a brain. Like if all roads were twisted neurons pulling your emotions from one place to another, bringing the city to life. A working brain is probably a lot like a map, where anybody can get from one place to another on the freeways. It's the non-working brains that get blocked, that have dead ends, that are under construction like mine. Yeah, I say, nodding up at her. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a brain. Ah, Dr. Minerva cuts her face into a wide smile. So what do we have here? I plop them down on the table. There are 24 now. No kind of crazy breakthroughs, just variations on a theme. Pigs with brain maps that resemble St. Louis, my couple for Noel joined by the sweeping bridge, a family of metropolises. Your artwork, she says. She leaves through them, going, oh my, at the particularly good ones. I constructed this stack last night, not just for Dr. Minerva, for anybody. The brain maps have a certain order. Ever since I've been doing them, they've been making it clear that they should be stacked for presentation. Craig, these are wonderful. Thanks, I sit down. We were both standing. I didn't even notice. You started these because you used to do them when you were 4? Right, well, something like them. And how do they make you feel? I look at the pile. Awesome. She leans in. Why? I have to think about that one, and when Dr. Minerva makes me think, I don't get embarrassed and try to skip it. I look to the left and stroke my chin. Because I do them, I say. I do them and they're done. It's almost like, peeing? Yes, Dr. Minerva nods. Something you enjoy. Right, I do it, it's successful, it feels good, and I know it's good. When I finish one of these up, I feel like I've actually done something, and like the rest of my day can be spent doing whatever, stupid crap, email, phone calls, all the rest of it. Craig, have you ever considered the fact that you might be an artist? This is a good anchor for me, I say. I admit it. It's a stupid thing to admit. It means that I'm not practical. But then again, I'm already in the loony bin. How practical am I going to get? I might have to give up on practical. But what, Craig? What am I going to do about school? I can't go to executive pre-professional for art. I'm going to throw a wild notion at you. Dr. Minerva leans back, then forward. Have you ever thought about going to a different school? I stare ahead. I hadn't. I honestly hadn't. Not once, not in my whole life, not since I started there. That's my school. I worked harder to get in than I did for anything else ever. I went there because coming out of it, I'd be able to be president or a lawyer. Rich, that's the point. Rich and successful. And look where it got me. One stupid year, not even one, like 3/4 of one. And here I am with not one, but 2 bracelets on my wrist, next to a shrink in a room adjacent to a hallway where there is a guy named Human Being walking around. If I keep doing this for 3 more years, where will I be? I'll be completely crazy. I don't want to be completely crazy. I don't like being here that much. I like being a little crazy. Yes, I say. Yes, I have thought about it. When? Just now? I smile. Absolutely. And what do you think? I clap my hands together and stand up. I think I should call my parents and tell them that I want to transfer schools. I'm not better, The weight hasn't left my head. I feel how easily I could fall back into it, lie down and not eat, waste my time and curse wasting my time, look at my homework and freak out and go and chill at errands, look at Nia and be jealous again, take the subway home and hope that it has an accident, go and get my bike and head to the Brooklyn Bridge. All of that is still there. The only thing is, it's not an option now. It's just a possibility. Like it's a possibility that I could turn to dust in the next instant and be disseminated throughout the universe like an omniscient consciousness. It's not a very likely possibility. I haven't cured anything, but something seismic is happening in me. I feel my body wrapped up and slapped on top of my spine. I feel the heart that beat early in the morning on Saturday and told me I didn't want to die. I feel the lungs that have been doing their work quietly inside the hospital. I feel the hands that can make art and touch girls. Think of all the tools you have. I feel the feet that can let me run anywhere I want, into the park and out of it and down to my bike to go all over Brooklyn and Manhattan too, once I convince my mom. I feel my stomach and liver and all that mushy stuff that's in there handling food, happy to be back in use. But most of all, I feel my brain up there taking in blood and looking out on the world and noticing humor and light and smells and dogs and every other thing in the world. Everything in my life is all in my brain. So really, so it would be natural that when my brain was screwed up, everything in my life would be. I feel my brain on top of my spine, and I feel it shift a little bit to the left. It's a huge thing, this shift, just as big as I imagined. My brain doesn't want to think anymore. All of a sudden, it wants to do. Run, eat, drink, eat more, don't throw up. Instead, take a piss, then take a crap, wipe your butt, make a phone call, open a door, ride your bike, ride in a car, ride in a subway, talk to people, read maps, make art, talk about your art, sell your art, take a test, get into a school, celebrate, have a party, write a thank you note to someone, hug your mom, kiss your dad, kiss your little sister, make out with Noelle, make out with her more, touch her, hold her hand, take her out somewhere, meet her friends, run down the street with her, take her on a picnic, eat with her, see a movie with her, see a movie with Aaron, heck, see a movie with Mia once you're cool with her, get cool with more people, drink coffee in little coffee drinking places, tell people your story, volunteer, go back to Sixth North, walk in as a volunteer and say hi to everyone who rated on you as a patient. Help people like Bobby. Get people books and music that they want when they're in there. Help people like Murtada. Show them how to draw more. Try drawing a landscape, try drawing a person, try drawing a naked person, try drawing Noelle naked. Travel, fly, swim, meet, love, dance, win, smile, laugh, hold, walk, skip. Okay, it's gay, whatever. Skip, ski, sled, play basketball, jog, run home and enjoy. Enjoy. Take these verbs and enjoy them. They're yours, Craig. You deserve them because you chose them. You could have left them all behind, but you chose to stay here. So now live for real, Craig. Live. Thank you. Moving into our last performance of the night, we have Seamus Hanlon. Seamus Hanlon is a 19-year-old vocalist who recently moved to Portland, Oregon to continue his music career. Growing up with the American songbook in his heart, he fell in love with the music and began performing at age 13. Hanlon had appeared with many great musicians and performers such as Dave Bennett, Fat Cat Swinger, Ive Evans, Terry Myers, and the Glenn Miller Orchestra. Having been introduced to the music festival circuit at a young age with the Oregon Coast Lab Band and Bay City Swing, he has made many friends and mentors in the music business. With an old school sound that brings nostalgia to audiences wherever he goes, Hanlon gives you his all at every performance. For more information about Seamus's background and performance schedule, be sure to follow him on all major social media platforms and check out his website at SeamusHanlon.com. Tonight, Seamus will be performing What a Wonderful World.
Thank you so much, Megan. I appreciate it. And everybody, I'm so honored to be a part of this with you and for a wonderful cause. And let's hopefully get to that goal on the GoFundMe. And wonderful job, everybody. I wish we could be in person, and just thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And this song always brings me a lot of joy, and I thought that this would be a good fit for the evening. So this one is What a Wonderful World, and this is the Louis Armstrong arrangement. I hope you guys like it. Thank you. Feel free to sing along. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, a bright blessed day, a dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than we'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks again, Megan. Let's get to that goal. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for performing. That was excellent. And what a great way to bring in the end of the night. So for anyone who is curious, tonight we have managed to raise, let me refresh it just to double check, $630 for Mental Health America. And I think that is absolutely fantastic that we have gotten to that amount, and it's going to go towards helping so many people. The GoFundMe is going to stay open for an indefinite amount of time. If you would like, if you haven't had the chance to donate tonight and would like to in the future, or if you know anyone else who would like to donate. In addition, if I set everything up correctly, the live stream should stay up on YouTube and people can come back and find it at a later date. But with that, we are coming on to the end of the night. And I thank you all so much for coming out and performing. And even though I can't hear you or see you, let's have one last round of applause for all of our amazing performers of the night. Ooh, I'll applaud on my own. Yay, cheerleader. I missed an opportunity to be a cheerleader, apparently. All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.